Welcome to Unapologetically Sensitive, where you can learn, relate, laugh, and maybe even live a bolder, brighter life. I'm your host, Patricia Young, licensed clinical social worker. This is a weekly podcast where we explore the strengths we have because of our sensitivity and some of the challenges it poses as well. The information in this podcast is not a substitute for help from a licensed mental health professional. Hey there. Surprise, surprise. This is bonus episode 28, and I just thought I'd pop in and touch base with you all because there's a lot that's going on. If this is the first time listening to the podcast, this is a bonus episode, and we have weekly interviews that are published on Tuesdays. You don't have to be a highly sensitive person to listen to this podcast. It's for anybody that's a deep thinker and a deep feeler. Some of you are aware that we've had a lot going on in our house this week. One of our sons who's been away at college called us on Sunday saying that he didn't feel well and he wanted to come home. We really didn't realize how serious he was. He didn't know what to communicate with us, and so we told him to stay at school. Finals are coming up. We told him to go to health services the next day. Sunday night, his roommate calls us and tells us that my son needs to go to the hospital. Well, that got my attention. My husband went up and brought him down. We thought that he had broken his toe. It turns out that he's got an infection in his foot. We've had 2 visits to the ER in the same day, and we've got daily wound checks right now. And so my son is home for the week until we figure out what's going on with this infection. What it brought up that I think is so important to talk about, and maybe families are doing this. I feel like we're pretty good communicators, but I can see so many areas where we really did not teach our kids about communication. Part of what I talked to my son about after the fact is what an infection looks like and what are the symptoms that you look for. It's red, it's warm to the touch, there's swelling, there's inflammation, it's painful when you have a cut or a wound. He didn't know, and he didn't know to take a picture, and he didn't really communicate with us clearly. So, of course, we have the guilt of not listening to him when he wanted to come home. And there's always that challenge that comes up when somebody is ill of either having regret because you didn't address it and take care of it, or feeling like you're being too anxious and worrying about something. So obviously in this case, we have regret because he really should have come home when he called us the first time, but he didn't give us the information, and it didn't even occur to us to see if he had an infection. The second thing that when my son is feeling better, we're going to continue to talk about is how does he communicate with us when he needs something and we say no? Because he asked to come home twice on Sunday, and we figured that he just was tired or worn out. There's some other things that are going on. And my famous phrase is, it's not my story to share. We just figured that he was tired and burned out, and he's got finals coming up the following week, and it just didn't make sense for him to come home for a week while he had school. So we obviously told him that he needed to just tough it out. But what we hadn't really had a conversation with him about is, how do you communicate that you have needs when you get a no? So we've been having that conversation with him. And then even with him being home, we had an agreement that you can't go out this week. If you're coming home because you're sick, you need to stay in, and your friends can come to our house to visit if you want. Yesterday, we had to talk about this because he's an extrovert. He really needs to be with his friends. That's what fills him up. It's really challenging for him to have this thing going on with his foot. We're all worried about what the outcome is, and is he healing, and is it getting worse? And him not being able to be around his friends is really hard on him. But he was really struggling with how to communicate with us about it. And so we had a talk about it's important for you to let us know what's going on and what your needs are. We still may say no. You can come back and let us know why something is important to you, and we can consider it. But I think that this is something that we often don't teach our kids to do. And I know when I was raised, no meant no, and you were not allowed to negotiate. So when my kids were really little, I kind of went to the other extreme, and so they could kind of walk all over us because I wanted them to have a voice. But I'm seeing a shift now, and my guess is too that his body is very ill. He's recovering. He's been through a lot physically and emotionally. His defenses are down, and that was another part of the conversation that we had. Your body is working really hard to heal. You've been through a tremendous amount recently that's going to wear down your sense of resilience, your ability to bounce back, how emotionally strong you feel. So that means that we've had more conflict. He's been snappier. I've been using this as an opportunity to provide feedback about how I need to be treated, even if he's hurting and he's not feeling well. I think it's easy for young kids to be very focused on themselves, but the truth is, this has impacted our family. It's impacted my life. It's impacted my clients. It's impacted my time and energy. Being at the ER at 4 a.m, being back at the ER till midnight the same day. It's been an opportunity to lovingly provide feedback about what my needs are, how we can both be in this together and have our needs met, and how we communicate. So it's what Glennon Doyle Melton calls brutal and beautiful. We've had some really tough times, but we've also had some pretty special times of communicating. And then, of course, at the same time that this kid comes home, my other son is away at college and he gets his first bout of food poisoning, and it's been really, really bad. My son is incredibly private from the time he was very little. I'll tell you, that's pretty much gone down the drain now. And I feel really blessed that he's felt comfortable enough to communicate with me about what's going on and ask me about symptoms that he's just not familiar with. Then I didn't hear from him for a day, and he was having a lot of back pain, and I really was concerned, and he wasn't answering his phone. He's a sleeper. He's a big sleeper. I was able to get his roommate's phone number and text him, can you just assure me that my son is not dead in his bed? So his roommate was kind enough to let me know what was going on. I mobilized some resources. His girlfriend was able to do some shopping for him. We transferred some money to her. This is how we use resources. And I didn't have his roommate's phone number. I had to contact his roommate's aunt and explain what was going on. I share this with you because often we end up feeling stuck and we don't know what to do. There are often far more possibilities if we just allow ourselves to be creative and to ask for what we want. And then through this, it's been stressful for me. I feel like the mental load has been really difficult because I'm worrying about my son with the infection. I'm feeling powerless about my son who's far away and I can't get to him. And staying on top of my son's care and his symptoms. And at the same time, he's 18, so helping him to be accountable and responsible for the things that he's able to do. I think it's easy when we're well to really provide the care that we need to ourselves. And so finding that balance between how much do I mother, how much do I allow him to adult on his own. It's a constant process to try and figure this out and to work it through. So I've been feeling really overwhelmed. It's been much harder for me to ask for what I want. I'm not as direct with my husband. It's harder for me to delegate. As highly sensitive people, we're already prone to overwhelm and overstimulation, that it's just going to be worse, especially if it's someone that we care about, and trying to find ways to get support, ask for what we need, and to know that it may not be as easy for us right now to ask for what we want when we may be able to do that when we're not stressed. I do feel really grateful that I've had amazing support, and to everybody out there that is aware of what's going on and you've been responding, I really, really appreciate it. If you want to connect, I'm on Facebook. I have a business page called Patricia Young, LCSW. I'm also on Instagram, Unapologetically Sensitive. And then my last two little points are, in the midst of all this, my mom right now is temporarily not driving. She has her own place that's attached to ours. And so on Sunday, my husband and I were out doing some errands to pick up some things for her. And we were on our way home and she called and asked us to pick up some food for her. And we were already past where the place was. But I have to tell you, my heart hurt for her because it's hard with her not driving. She's not able to have the freedom and independence that she had. And she loves going out and doing errands and spending time with friends. I'm pretty happy to be at home. And if I don't have to do errands, I'm really happy about that. But this is about my mom, and my heart just hurt for her that she couldn't enjoy a meal that she wanted. When we came home, I talked to her about it, and she was fine with it. She was very understanding, but it made my heart sad. We talked about options and using Uber Eats and how she can get food that she needs when she's wanting something because I still want her to have a quality of life that's enjoyable to her, but we're just in a learning phase right now where things are really changing. And it's interesting that with clients, I'm really able to know that my clients struggle and it's okay. And I have faith that they will work it through and I'm here to support them. And I generally do not take on the struggles that my clients have. I think that makes it easier for them to know that I can stand with them, provide support, resources, but know that they're going to be able to work it out. It is so different when it's your family, with my mother, with my kids. It just hurts my heart when they are suffering and I can't do anything about it. It's totally normal. I get it. And I think it's so important that we name these things, talking about it, naming these things. And I think had I not had the support this week to talk about all the challenges that are coming up for me, would have made this a lot more difficult. I tend to be a verbal processor, so that's what works for me. If you're not a verbal processor, I don't know what to say, but when we have places and people that we can talk about what's going on and have people mirror and reflect back to us what's going on and to provide support for us, that's part of the beautiful part, that we're not alone in it. Nobody can change it for us, but we know that we're loved, we're not alone, and we're supported. So on this pleasant note, I always feel like this stuff is heavy and I want to be transparent with you guys. I think that we all struggle and that there's something to be gleaned from the struggles that we have. And if there's any way that my struggles provide comfort or validation or education, or it reminds you guys how to talk to your kids about how to communicate or how to negotiate, that's really what my hope is. Remember, sensitivity is nothing to apologize for. It's our superpower. Have a blessed day.